Oh, all right. We're a couple minutes into the hour, and I know people would like this to start on time, and people will come in as we go along. So I'm going to start now. I'd like to welcome everyone to the virtual Fourth Ward Town Hall. Um, Myself, I'm Bill Fahrenwald. I'm a Fourth Ward Alderman, and along with Tom Hawley, who's my co-alderman. Also here with us tonight is Randy Heuser, the city clerk, and he's going to be available to answer some questions and talk about some larger city issues. Um, we're really glad to be able to do this, although we certainly wish we could do it in person. We've done, Tom and I have done a couple of town halls in the past in person, and it's been very helpful. It would be great to be able to do it in person, but we cannot. And we were planning to have one in the spring, in fact, but that wasn't possible. So, here we all are in our new virtual world, and I'm sure we will be learning as we go along tonight. And any criticisms or comments or suggestions that we can make it better, feel free to send those along as well. We'll all be learning. This is a town hall for the Fourth Ward. Certainly anyone is welcome to watch. But of course, because Tom and I are the Fourth Ward's aldermen, we're going to primarily focus on those issues. And anyone's welcome to submit questions as well. As you'll see up on the screen there, you can submit questions in English to the text number 708-528-0681 and in Spanish to 504-615-2411. And we'll have someone who can translate that. I think he's not here yet, but I'm sure he'll be along. And we also, we'll be taking that screen on and off, so you might want to write that number down or put it in your text or something before it disappears as Randy comes in and out. The agenda tonight is to follow along really kind of with the committee structure that Tom and I serve on. We serve on a number, in several committees which kind of cover the issues that are of importance to residents. And so we're going to give some summaries of what's going on in those committees and what's going on in the Fourth Ward. And again, as we're talking, if you have questions, send them in. We'll either answer them right at the moment, or we'll take them at the end. Then after we're done, Tom and Randy and I are done, with our presentations. Then we'll open to any other questions that you want to ask. That everything's fair game. And this, I should probably just point out, this is not an official city function. This is just something that Tom and I have put on, so it's not a public meeting per se. It's just an informal gathering of residents in Blue Island, or in the Fourth Ward. So I think that Tom, that might be the introduction, the ground rules of what we're going to be doing here. And Tom is on Community Development Committee, and he is going to talk about some of those issues. And that also kind of ties into Western Avenue, which is a big part of the Fourth Ward. So he's going to provide us with some updates there. So I think I will turn it over to Tom, and then I'm going to be up after Tom is.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. It's always good to well, we're not really seeing you, but I see your names, so I know who's here. Yes, community development's been pretty busy this year. There's been a lot of things that have been finally moving forward. We've been sort of collecting the money from the sales tax revenue and trying to build up some money to do some major projects. And then, of course, with the COVID thing, we decided we should probably try and do some smaller things just to get us something going, because if we lost another year, it would be bad. So, so what we did this year, we started out this year with purchasing 39 new planters, which I'm sure if you've been down Western Avenue and Old Western Avenue, you couldn't have missed them. They're very nice concrete planters. They're large. They pretty much all have a red twig dogwood in them. The rectangular ones do. And then plenty of other annuals that Val picked out and arranged. And we had a healthy group of volunteers that came out 2 days this year, because we had probably twice as many planters as we have in the past. And so it's been a great crew that's always been helping. And then there's the group of volunteers that have always watered them. They're still watering them from 127th through Grove Street. And then we've hired a Ken Dompling's company to do watering from 119th down to 127th. and also on Old Western to keep all those alive. And they're also maintaining the little berm by Dunkin' Donuts on Gregory and 127th. And they're taking care of the triangle and the entryway to Old Western this year. And that's all coming out of the business development fund. So those are some positive things that are happening. In addition, after 6 years that I've been on city council, the horrible gas station that's been abandoned for all of those years and probably 10 previous, finally had gotten their environmental testing finally finished. And so we were able to finally take down the canopy. The funds for that also came out of Business Development District. In addition, they've covered up the building and painted it. You'll notice that they covered up the gas pumps as well as the building and painted it all a pretty neutral color, you might want to say. And Kevin Brown and the Blue Island Arts Alliance are now accepting applications from local artists, or well, any artists really, who would like to take one of those pieces and do a work of public art on each of those pieces. So I believe there's 4 gas pumps and then the main building itself. So at some point in the very near future, hopefully, I think we're hoping for this fall, still, that people will be out there doing some sort of art installation at that property to help dress it up a little bit. So we're excited about that. And we're hoping that that will continue to move forward. And some other things that are happening on Western, well, Old Western basically was resurfaced this spring. The state did that. We thought it was a city street and that the city would have to resurface it. But it turned out that the state sent us a letter saying that they were going to resurface it, and so we didn't argue with them, so we let them do it. So that was done. So that helped out down there, and there's new striping and everything else looks very nice. Some of the future projects, we actually started in the fall with Christmas, with getting Christmas decorations from 119th all the way down to 139th. On the poles, some of them were better than others, and we're looking at doing similar thing for this year as well. As a side note, you may or may not know, but we're going to not be having a Christmas parade this year due to the COVID issues, and so we're going to try and do something to try and make it a little festive uptown, but we probably will not be doing a parade at this point. It costs a lot of money to do a parade, and I see Mary Polson is here, so she knows how much that costs, so we didn't feel that it was probably right to hit the business owners who make very generous donations year after year with such a difficult year. So community development, we're talking about numerous other things too, little issues about some buildings that are coming down. I think we have funding for the last of the building on Vincennes at 119th to come down. We're hoping that that will make that property more attractive to a developer who might come in and develop it completely. And there's some other buildings around town. You'll notice that the old nursing home, which is just west of Western Avenue on 127th, next door to Hickey's, was torn down. I believe someone has purchased that property, and I think they're going to make it a parking lot, which will help Hickey's and probably Beggars at the same time. So the theater also has sold to the Goretto family, who owns Beggars. I'm not sure. I haven't heard final plans on what they plan on doing. Last I heard is they had a couple ideas that they were kicking around. The few ideas that I have heard sound exciting. Just the fact that we have a good Blue Island family purchased that building, and I know they'll take care of it, and it will be an improvement no matter what they do. So there's some exciting things going on Western as well. So I think that's about it, unless somebody has questions, specific questions.
I'm sorry, Tom, I was on mute. There are a couple of questions that you maybe could answer. One is that businesses on Western that have been boarded up, they have no signs, only plywood and falling down awnings. How long is this acceptable? Western looks like not so good. And there are many people that are trying to pick up and do good things lately, which is true. So I guess they're asking how long can a building be allowed to, be boarded up or in bad shape?
We generally are doing it. The building department is trying to stay on top of that as much as they can. And I do know that one of the things that we did in the fall was there was a group that walked Western Avenue and pushed for facade improvements. And there have been quite a few facade improvements up and down Western Avenue. I know, I mean, board ups, I don't know of that many board ups really on Western. I think the Klein's building's been somewhat repaired. That looked like horrible for a long time, and we pushed and pushed and pushed along with the Historic Preservation Commission, and they finally addressed that issue. I know there's somebody who wants to go into where the True Value was in the Klein's department, which is Ophelia's Banquets. So we're hoping that she'll go in there. And then, I know Ray took over pretty much that whole block from Vermont up to New Street and has developed that block on that side of the street. And I know Cook County had an issue, but it's only been a couple of weeks, I think, with the board ups. I may be missing some further north on Western, but I don't think there's a lot of board ups. But I do know that we're encouraging business owners to apply for grants to get things like new awnings, do some repairs to their facades. I know Flowers by Kathy got one. There's a bunch that have gotten them recently. A lot of them have done dumpster enclosures, which was something that we have been pushing on lately because it just looks nicer than having the dumpsters sitting out in the open. So many of the grants have gone for paying for nicer dumpster enclosures, which is good because we're trying to enforce that ordinance, and we have a way of helping business owners because it is an expense that not every business owner uptown. You have to remember these business owners uptown, they're struggling, especially now this year. But I mean, in the past, not all of them were doing spectacular to begin with, and they were kind of living month to month as it was. So, so it's nice to be able to help the ones on Western that we can.
Okay, and I got one other question, and I won't name the store in particular, but they're noticing that the parking lot isn't clean in there. And it is there. I know the store they're talking about. It's not there. It is their parking lot, excuse me. And she's that's being asked, can someone send them a letter regarding their lot? The store is new and they really should be doing better than this. So I have a thought about that, but I'll let you give your thought first.
If they're talking about Dollar Tree, it came up at our last community development committee meeting, and the building department had already sent somebody over. The manager of the store says that the parking lot is cleaned every morning when they get there, and it's clean, it stays fairly clean at night, and that most of the garbage that comes there is stuff that comes overnight, is what they say. So, but they are aware of it, and they have been made aware of it, and they have been asked to just maintain it and make sure that it stays clean. If there's another parking lot that I'm missing, then we can take a look.
I know I'm thinking of another one right now that I've got to talk to the department. And that's a good point. You certainly, if you do see something like that, you certainly can take it to our building department. They do citations, and they are, they're ready, willing, and anxious to do them. And or you can send me or Tom an email or a text or whatever, and we will, also take it up with the building department. So, and another thing, the city can always go out and issue tickets and so forth, and we will do that. But there's another way you can vote, and that's with your dollars. And if you think a business is really not holding its end of the bargain, you could tell them that you're not spending money there because they're not being a good citizen. So that's the most effective thing, I think, that a business can hear. They'll sharpen up real quick. I think, anyway. Here comes my dog. Hold on a second. All right, there he is. He's always got something to say. All right, Tom, could you just do a quick talk about the kind of the city's financial position for us? Since you are the CPA in the room.
Well, I know that the finance department and the finance committee have been working hard this year, especially with the pandemic, trying to figure out exactly how much of an effect this is going to have on our revenues for the year. And the last I heard, they were thinking it was going to be down about $250,000 to $500,000. And I know that the finance committee did meet with all of the department heads and asked them to eliminate some expenses. And I know that all of them eliminated some expenses out of their appropriated budget. And I believe that they actually eliminated a little bit more than what we were predicting it to be down. Of course, at the time this was done, no one had any idea how long this is going to last. This looks like it's going to last well into 2021, at least from what I can see. And so we'll have to continue to monitor that, of course. But I do believe that Topeka is sort of watching those expenses and trying to make sure that people stay on budget. We've cut a lot. There's been a lot of personnel cut over the years, and it's pretty much down to the minimum. I know every time I talk to Public Works, they're talking about how lean they are, and they are. But they're still doing, I think things are getting done, and it may not be as quickly as everybody wants, but I do think that it does get done fairly quickly. I wish we had more money for, running the street sweeper a little bit more, or I see Emily Myers on here, and thank you for all of your efforts over all these weekends trying to help clean up. Unfortunately, I've been so swamped at work, I haven't been able to even get out to help you with that, but I would love to get out there at some point to help. And then, so thank you. And thank you to everybody who helps with cleanup, or when you're walking the city and you pick up garbage. I've seen, Sandy Earth doing that, and I've seen a number of people doing that. And, when we're out, we're picking up garbage, and everybody helping a little bit, that helps a lot. So, and it helps everyone stay clean. So the budget overall, the real estate taxes that come in from everybody's real estate tax bill really it's a small portion of it that comes to Blue Island. It looks like about 10%, 15% of your bill comes to Blue Island. And so there's and those obviously have not gone down because of the pandemic. They did give us an extra couple months to pay, which is nice, but the bills are not coming down at all. So, but that is a major source of our revenue. The money from state income tax is also a major bit. So the sales tax revenue is kind of a small amount anyway. So the reduction in the sales tax revenue hasn't been as devastating as it might have been. If the economy, if people start losing their homes and people aren't paying real estate tax bills, if this lasts much longer, it could be much more damaging to our budget than it has been so far. But I do think that they're trying to keep tabs on it as best as they can on a weekly or monthly basis.
Okay. Well, I'll move on to my segment, I guess, Tom, and then we can have more questions later. There's a couple here, I think, but we can hold them till later. All right. So, and again, for people who've just joined us, you'll see the number up there, the numbers where you can submit text questions. We're open to anything. It is a Fourth Ward Town Hall meeting, but we'll talk about just about anything. And so I currently I'm on two committees, Municipal Services and Public Health and Safety. So I'm going to give a little quick update on some issues that are important that are going through those committees, and of course, open to questions on those subjects as well. In Public Health and Safety, probably the most important issue, well, nothing is more important than public health and safety, and nothing is more important than saving lives. So I'd say the most important issue is this one of the city needing to move to an advanced life-saving system on our ambulances. As some of you may know, I'm sure you probably all know, the hospital closed about a year ago. And up until that time, our ambulances were only required and really only needed to have what's called basic life safety on them. Essentially not paramedics, certainly very capable people, but because the trip to the hospital is so short, or was so short, that it was legal and allowed and considered medically appropriate that, in a 2 or 3 minute trip to the hospital, primarily you need to get them there and stabilize. Now the trip to the hospital is much longer. And it's creating a number of issues for the city. And our fire chief, Rita, has been diligently looking at and researching how to move us to advanced life saving. And primarily it's a question of money, and a lot of money. The good news is that the CARES Act will apparently cover most of the equipment upgrade that's required, which is substantial, on the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's a big relief, because I didn't know how, I really wondered how we were going to do this. However, there's still a very, very substantial personnel cost. None of our, well, I may be wrong about that, but almost none, I'll say, of our current fire department employees are paramedics, and there's a substantial amount of training and qualification. And and the chief went over in the committee with us last week or 2 weeks ago, various options that he's looking at, all of which cost quite a bit of money, some of which take longer, but you spread the cost out, or some of which happen quicker and get you up to speed faster, but it's a big chunk of money all at once. So anyway, we're all looking at that, and it is very important. This is an informational meeting and certainly not a political meeting, but I do feel there's one thing I'm going to say tonight about the situation, because it's relevant and it's important. When the hospital closed, the city was offered $2 million by the owners of the hospital if we would cooperate in the closure. The city council, for reasons I still don't understand, decided not to do that. There were no strings attached. There was nothing. We would get a $2 million payment. And we turned it down. And actually, that could have amounted to as much as $5 million over time, based on certain conditions that we might or might not have met. But there was $2 million that they were simply going to give us a check. We turned that down. And we'd have advanced life saving today, or we could anyway. We could chosen to spend the money that way or in other ways. So, that's when you look at what things cost and why we don't get things done. It's certainly a lot of it's because we just don't have the money, but sometimes really bad decisions are made, and that was a really bad decision. So I'm just going to leave that there. It's a political statement, and I don't want to go on and on about it, but it directly affects that issue. But anyway, good news is we're making progress, and I have confidence that the chief is going to figure this out for us. He's a good fire chief, and we have a great police chief also. Just a kind of a quick note on the issue of bars and COVID. I'm sure you're all aware that there have been issues in Blue Island and elsewhere with bars. It's a very challenging situation. We all want, the businesses to succeed as much as they can, but it's equally or frankly more important that lives be protected and our health and our safety. So there have been bars that have been, several bars that have been visited by the city and cited for violations in various ways. One major bar is currently closed, which I really applaud the mayor for doing that. The mayor is also our liquor commissioner, and that's his responsibility. And it's not an easy decision, because that's a big business in town. But it was an important decision, and that's got to be done right there. So we keep looking at that, and we will continue to look at it. And it's really important, as I said at City Council last night, our region, we're in Region 10 in Illinois. If we get up to 8% positivity, more businesses will be shut down by the governor. The bars will not, there'll be no inside business going on, and other businesses will suffer. So we're at 7% and climbing. We're really close. So really wear a mask. It's going to help everybody. This kind of runs throughout the evening, I guess, but in terms of the police department, again, I feel real good about our police department. We had, when I first came in, a great police chief in LaSalle King, and unfortunately he left us, but we were fortunate that someone was able to step up into his place, Chief Arzab. And she's very competent and very dedicated and doing a good job. She too is dealing with understaffing. The police force should have a kind of minimum staff of 37 on the payroll, if you will. We're down at 33. There were some unexpected retirements and other departures. And it takes a while to get, it just takes time. There's training. There's a lot that has to go into bringing on a police officer. So she's working on that, but she's working short-staffed. I don't think you'd know it out there on the street. She's doing a good job. And so, you know, but I feel good about that. And I observe their behavior, and I deal with the police, as I know Tom does and others do all the time. And they're very responsive and try to do the best they can. And sometimes it's a difficult situation. Again, in the fire department, another issue is that generally the equipment is old and worn out. We have a ladder truck that it's 20 plus years old. It has essentially been out of service most of this year because one thing that we get it repaired, we take it out, and a couple of days later, the next thing breaks down. And right now there's some kind of a generator or something that's down, and it just needs to be replaced. And it's like a $1.9 million piece of equipment. So the chief is looking at the fire chief is talking to us on the committee about that issue generally, because it's not just that truck. There's other trucks, there's ambulances. There's a lot of worn out equipment on our fire department, and the ambulances are running a lot more miles now. They're running over to Little Company or more often to Christ. Used to be in and out of used to be have a run that lasted 2 or 3 minutes. Now it's 15 minutes and each way and a lot of miles. So that's definitely an issue that we're looking at, and it's a serious one. It's a challenge. It is just everything in this town is a challenge financially. There's just no way around it. And then I guess finally the question of Metro South. I've had a couple questions come in about Metro South. And the current status, that the last thing I knew in committee that the chief told us was, well, the Illinois Department of Public Health, I would say manages, controls the hospital. There's a private owner, but the Illinois Department of Public Health has taken it over. And as I'm sure you know, it was refitted for, I don't know, several hundred rooms that would be COVID compatible. Fortunately, just avoided having to use it. But there was, last I heard a couple of weeks ago, a plan that starting around now, they would be bringing in patients from congregate living situations, primarily, nursing homes, who are not, terribly ill, but who have COVID and need to be separated from the population for everyone's protection. So that's my understanding of the next possible use of it. And I know the other thought was, we're about to enter flu season. And, as I said earlier, our numbers are going up and we're really not that far from a real problem again. We've been doing a good job of holding it. But that facility is now available for that. And I would just expect that the Department of Public Health is going to hold it until, this thing kind of resolves itself, which I guess is probably no sooner than next summer. So it's going to sit there, I think, as it is. The good news is, there's a lot of money been put into the hospital building. It's being maintained properly. There's security. So it's a much better situation than we might have thought it was going to be, because it looked like it was just going to be abandoned. So COVID was a terrible thing, but one good outcome was our hospital is being well taken care of at this time. So those are, I'm sorry, I talked about COVID. So that's the issues from public health and from public health and safety. And I'm going to switch real quickly here to municipal services, which is the other committee I serve on, and that covers kind of public works, et cetera. Which of course the most asked question and I think every other alderman gets is, when's my street going to be fixed? And none of us has a really good answer. The streets are pretty much in generally not very good shape. The alleys are worse, and in my experience anyway, the alleys are in some ways a worse problem than the streets, because it's very difficult for people to get down a long alley to a garage, and especially in winter. So as Tom said, Public Works is really doing the best job they can. I have no doubt about it. I see their people out. I talk to Jim Polstro a lot. They're a hardworking group of people. They're working under an additional constraint because with COVID, they have to take extra precautions, which do slow them down somewhat, but they're trying not to let them slow them down. And then we had this storm 2 weeks ago, and I saw them out today. They are still picking up branches from that storm. They're doing other things too. So that, that all impacts on the work that they would be doing, the patching work right now on streets and alleys. So unfortunately, first things first, they had to take care of the storm cleanup, and it's going to slow down streets and alleys even more. We do try, Tom and I know both, we hear a lot about alleys. We try to work with Public Works to get them. There's frankly no way they're going to get to all the alleys. It just isn't possible. They try to get to the worst ones first. We try to alert them to the worst ones first. You might think you've got a really bad one, and you probably do, but there's probably a way worse one somewhere else. The alleys are in really bad shape, and it's regrettable. We do want to look at some issues around how we might be able to spread. I was talking to Tom, in fact, the other night about how we might be able to spread some dollars further on the streets. We're looking for every way we can. So, and any ideas would be welcome. Garbage collection. I just want to say real quickly that from my personal experience, our garbage pickup and recycling pickup seems to be performed pretty well. I do hear of complaints of service problems, and I get them sometimes. And frankly, at least as often as anything, it turns out that the resident is making improper use of the can. You can only put recycling in the recycling can. You can't put it in a plastic bag. You can put a lot of garbage you can put in the garbage can, but you can't put yard waste in there. And if it is there, they won't pick it up. Now I have an argument with them. I think they ought to always sticker the can and say, here's the reason we didn't pick it up, because then it comes back to Tom or me or Public Works. But in any event, I do think that for the most part, they're doing a good job. We just have to continue to monitor that. Another issue that we hear a lot about in municipal services and elsewhere is the city stickers. And everybody seems to hate the city stickers for one reason or another. They are an important source of revenue for the town, and we need a source of revenue. And it's legitimate. I mean, everybody, drive a car in town, it costs the town money. So we need to make some money to be able to, at least try to patch some of those streets and those alleys. I will say that the amount that we collect on city stickers is a relatively small amount of our overall budget. Randy can correct me, but I think it's like $300,000 or $400,000. Randy, you tell me if I'm wrong. But I will say that this year I will give kudos to Randy's office. Last I heard, he was, I think, 500 sticker sales ahead of last year. And our police department did get out, despite what you sometimes read on Facebook, and they do this every August. And the last I heard, they had issued 900 citations for parking stickers. Now I see people complain on Facebook, they're mad they got a ticket, and I'm sorry. You're going to get a ticket if you don't have a sticker. Sometimes mistakes are made, and we will correct those mistakes, but we all need to buy a sticker. And more and more of us are. And the final thing I want to just touch on here is flooding. We see tonight, if you've been watching the news, there's a horrendous hurricane about to hit the South Coast, and they're going to get flooding unlike anything any of us will ever experience, thank goodness. But we do have flooding here. And I know personally, because I've had flooding in my house, so I am well aware of the heartache and the suffering that goes along with it. It's a miserable thing. There are areas in town that flood, and it's the result of it being a 150-year-old community. It wasn't always built to the highest specifications. The sewers, the old sewers, are small and getting less capable. Some are just low-lying areas, like my house is in a little bit of a low-lying area. And flooding is a miserable thing, but it isn't a hopeless thing, as I've learned. I've lived in my house for 20 years, and I knew nothing about flooding when I got here. And after losing a couple hot water heaters and a whole bunch of stuff, and having yucky, mucky water in my basement, talking to plumbers and doing one thing after another, over time I've been able to manage the situation pretty well in my house. Not to say that it's bone dry down there, but you know, I got things at an acceptable level, and I feel that I really want to work on getting together some kind of a program for residents in Blue Island, like me, who moved here at one point and didn't know how to deal with it. There's a lot of little things you can do, but they're not immediately apparent. And some of them seem like really minor, and they actually make a big difference, and they don't cost much. Some things cost a lot. But I think that we really need to help our residents help themselves. There are places where definitely flood remediation needs to be done on a massive scale. And it's going to cost a lot of money, and it has to be done. I can guarantee you it's not going to happen by next spring. And so we need to help our residents figure out how to manage the situation as best they can. I think it's important because it's a miserable thing. It decreases property values. It's a health and safety issue. So I do. I'm going to get, as I've seen what's going on here in the last year or so. I'm going to get more active in that myself. All right. So let's see. I had a couple things come in. Okay, I did.
One thing. One of the easiest things you can do to help stop the flooding basements anyways, disconnecting your downspouts from the sewers, because what happens, all the water rushes off your roof, and then it goes down into the sewer system, and then it backs up, because especially in those big storms. And I'm amazed just going around town at how many houses still have their downspouts hooked up to the sewer system, and it's a really easy way to disconnecting them is a really easy way to help fix that issue a little bit.
And or you could do like Tom did and buy a house that doesn't have a basement. That'll solve the problem also.
Yeah, my slab house is nice, except when it rains really hard and it rolls in from the sidewalk.
I thought about filling my basement in at one point, but it wasn't really. There is a question here kind of related to what we were talking about. What about mask enforcement in businesses? And the questioner cites a particular issue of a liquor store where it's pretty dismal in terms of mask wearing compliance. I will say that in my experience in the stores in town, I think it's pretty good, actually. I've been kind of proud of Blue Islanders. I think they've done a pretty good job. There are exceptions for sure. The liquor store would probably be one. That's a tough one. Obviously, you have to see it to know that it's a problem. And our city people, we just can't be everywhere at once. That's just all there is to it. They certainly are subject, the owners are subject to penalties if it's a problem. And, I guess I would say that if you see the problem, talk to the owner. That would be certainly the most direct. Don't talk to the customers. Please do not do that. It just creates a possible hazard. But I would talk to the owner. And like I said earlier about the garbage, you can say, I'm a customer and I'm not coming back in here until I feel safe, and I don't feel safe with no masks. And maybe that'll change things. And you can call the city, definitely. And if they get enough complaints about a given location, of course, they're going to go check that location. So it's a challenge. And again, it's kind of up to everybody. And, just try to set a good example. Wear your mask. I do. Let's see if we got anything else here that we want to go through questions before we
I see there's a question about ticketing overnight parking, and that there's a lot of confusion about that. I know that's something that we've talked about in community development. When I was chair of community development, that was one of the things that we passed, was the overnight parking ban. The main reason we did that was because we were getting a lot of complaints from people that said that there were a lot of cars parked on the streets without city stickers. And they were saying, why should we pay for a city sticker if all these cars can park here for free anyway? And they're here night after night after night after night after night. And so we would go and complain to the police department. The police would go out and they would run the tags on the cars, and the cars would come up registered in other cities. So meaning somebody moved to Blue Island from Chicago, the car's still registered in Chicago. So they were saying they could not ticket the car for being there or for not having a Blue Island city sticker because it was registered elsewhere. So this was one of the things that the police department at the time came up with, was overnight parking and restricting it. The time from between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., I believe, during the week, or 2 a.m. and 5:30 or something, and 3 and 5:30 on Friday and Saturday. And so if you have somebody who's staying and parking overnight, you're supposed to, I believe there's a form you can download from online, or you can call 311 and call it in. One of the things they were doing, which I never understood why the police department set it up this way, but this was the way they did it, was that if you were staying multiple nights, you had to call every night. That certainly is kind of a burden, and I see no reason. What we talked about doing was just saying, if you have somebody staying for the weekend, you can say, this car with this license plate will be here from Friday through Monday, and so you don't have to call every night. So basically, it was a way that the police could try and sort of enforce some of the non city stickered cars, and be able to try and get people to either A, re-register their car in Blue Island, get a Blue Island city sticker, and be parked legally, or B, not park their cars here. There was a story from somebody who said, the woman called and said, well, where's my son going to park his car? Because he lives in Tinley and he can't park it on the streets in Tinley overnight. So he just parks them in Blue Island during the week and then comes and picks it up on the weekend. And I'm like, well, why do you think it's okay to park in Blue Island on the street? So anyways, so there seems to be more confusion lately than when it was first brought in. So I guess there's just maybe some new people that are moving in and are confused. But hopefully that clarifies it. If it doesn't, feel free to give me a call or email me.
Yeah, and I'll also add on that subject that Tom mentioned something that I think is helpful. You may not be aware of it, but if you want to file a non-emergency complaint with the police, and that is generally something that is not in progress, it doesn't, I mean, an in progress could be, like fireworks may not seem like an emergency, but if it's in progress, you can report it. But if there's something not in progress, like a part, or maybe a car that appears to be abandoned, there's actually a place on the website where you can go fill out an online form. I've used it a number of times. It's quite convenient. A little hard to find. If you click the police department tab, it'll take you to the police department page, subpage. And on the right side, about three things down, there's a thing called Frontline. You click on there and it takes you to the, it's not immediately apparent, I gotta say, but it takes you to that form. And it's a real easy way to, and it asks for a lot of details, which is kind of helpful because it helps the police. They ask you the time of day and location and all that kind of stuff that they need to know. And then they do respond. I mean, they'll let you know what happened. So that's a good way to get to those issues. Tom, a question not so much for you because you're the expert, because you were alderman before I was, and we had the water barrel program. That's over now for some time. Someone's asking, could we consider that again? I haven't heard anybody talk about it in a while.
Yeah, that was something that was done by Cook County, I believe, was offered by the Water Reclamation District, and that they stopped that program about 3 years ago. I know there's still a barrel sitting in the 911 building when you walk in to go to city council there in the corner. And I think it probably says, call this number to get a barrel, but then I don't even think anyone answers it. But yeah, that was a nice program. They're not really that expensive, and it's not that hard to do just by doing, getting a barrel at Menards, and you can look it up on YouTube or something. And there's a gajillion videos on how to set one up and how it works and all that other stuff. But it was a nice program when we had it. We actually got rid of a lot of them, over 100, like hundreds of them, I want to say.
Yeah. Randy, are you there? He had to go. I think Randy may have had to go do
something.
Yeah, I'm here. You want to? Randy's here as he's our city clerk, and he has an overall view of certain city operations. We probably touched on a few of them here, but I thought it might be to have Randy to come in here and talk about a few of those things. Then he's available to answer questions, of course. So, Randy, I'll let you take it away.
You talked a lot about COVID on me there, Bill.
Sorry, you can't.
Anyway,
Randy, it's okay.
Yeah, no, you're all right. So COVID is been around since March now, and we've been kind of plugging away at it and kind of doing, I think, a yeoman's job as a city overall to keeping up with what's going on. And it originally started as a means for the city to respond internally to the COVID epidemic and ever-changing rules that were handed down by the Department of Public Health and the governor's office. You know, at first we met daily, including a few Saturdays, and over time we saw the need to slightly expand the scope and start to include communication with the public about the new mandates from Springfield. So Chief Rita records regular updates to the city's website, and that can be found on the city's website on the main page, blueisland.org. Also, internally, we send a weekly employee update to all staff. We work closely with the Illinois Emergency Management Association and the Cook County Department of Homeland Security. And as you mentioned before, there's a reimbursement program for a lot of stuff that's going on. And Cook County has earmarked just shy of $700,000 for expense reimbursement for non-budgeted expenses incurred, which is where Bill was talking about the ALS upgrade. So anyway, it's something we need to do. The numbers, the current numbers, I should say, not current, the ones that were reported as of yesterday to us there were 7,032 tested in Blue Island. 755 cases were positive. And also, as you alluded to, Bill, we really do have to work on wearing masks. The region just south of us, Region 10, Region 7, just got shut down as of today because they were over the 8% threshold. And they're going to be that way for at least 14 days and stay that way until they can drop down to 6.5% positivity rate. So, and what that means is that hang on a second here, that we really have to keep track of keeping the masks on and keeping our positivity rate down. With the next step, what they're facing in Will County and Kankakee County is no indoor service for bars. Reservations only, maximum 6 people for sit-down restaurants. We don't want to do that. You know, we just don't want to do that. We have to stay up with it. And in regards to the hospital right now for COVID, the last thing they were going to do, but that even got pushed back, was that we were going to use the hospital for nursing home patients that were needing to be further quarantined for the 14 days before they returned to their facility. Let's see, I took a bunch of notes while you were talking. We're talking about Ophelia's Banquet Hall, and that's kind of what's in my left ear right now, is they're having a zoning board and a planning board meetings to approve that. And the planning commission did approve. So now they're just about ready to start the zoning board. So that's good. So it's smooth progress there. I'm going to bounce all over because I've been taking notes while you guys were talking, okay? Overnight parking. I got clarity on that. We do not need to call in every day. If you do have someone that's going to be there for a 4-day weekend, you can say the begin date and the end date. So you do not have to call every night. So that's a positive. I got clarity on that from the chief after the last meeting where we talked about it. And the update on the citations, they're just shy of 2,000 citations for people for either overnight parking or not having a sticker. So again, if there's anything that we would want to do, is that would be for everyone to buy a sticker in June. I would rather not collect one single late fee. We just want people to buy their stickers. And I guess that's about all I really had in that regard. Anyone have any questions?
Randy, I got one here that's kind of related. You would have an answer for Tom, or I would too. Interesting question. If the police tell you outright they will not enforce parking violations against certain people, do we have any recourse?
That they will not enforce
parking violations against certain people.
Oh no, they do. They write. I've had several people come in that I would kind of surprised that they got tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to write tickets, especially if there's a complaint. If you have someone in your neighborhood, by all means, let them know. They will cite people.
I would say that if, and I think it's pretty unusual that would happen. I agree, Randy. Our police are pretty good about not playing favorites. But anyway, if you do really feel that's happening, you certainly could contact the police chief. I know you might be reluctant to, do so because you might want to remain anonymous, or contact your alderman. And, we can take that to the chief without identifying anybody. So if you do see a problem like that, we are your go-to there, and we can carry the message. And, so if there is a problem, and I would agree with Randy, I don't think it happens very often, but I guess anything's possible, that would be a way to handle it. And I would certainly be more than happy to look into something like that. I would be disappointed also. Okay, so there's the issue of the Cook County Medical Center. And I know Randy's got some information about that. I've got some. Randy, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So there's a couple of things going on in the neighborhood, in the UTOD area, Uptown Transit Oriented Development area, where the Cook County Health Center has been a problem for people parking on the side streets there because they don't want to walk all the way down to from the Union Street lot to the Cook County Hospital. That's where the employees are supposed to park. We also have issues, and that is during the day, 7 to 7 basically. We also have issues a little further south when Ravens and the Vault open with parking in the neighborhoods up in the evening hours up that way. So we were talking about doing, putting restrictions here for like resident only or resident permit parking only. Where during the day we're up at the north end of the UTOD. We were talking about nighttime parking restrictions by the Ravens and the Vault. I think a comprehensive approach to that would be, and originally last night I had suggested from Gregory to Greenwood and from 127 to Grove, but I was talking with the one of the police sergeants today, and having seen what's going on, he's suggesting resident only parking for Blue Island residents who have a Blue Island sticker from 127th to James Street, and then from Irving to Maple, because if we look at the problems that we're having, the cars that are working at the Cook County Health System, they don't live in Blue Island.
Right.
And if you look at the attendees at Ravens and the Vault, they don't usually live in Blue Island. If you look at the stickers, the tickets that are written. So I think that would be a pretty comprehensive approach, and that's what I'm going to suggest to the committees before it goes to council, and hopefully we can get Howard and Mark Miller to kind of look at it a little bit closer and see if that makes sense to them, and then present that to the city council, because it is a problem. I mean, and it's a huge problem up that way.
Randy, that's great. I hadn't heard that idea before, and it really makes a lot of sense to me rather than having to go through some kind of complicated. Well, I like it because it permits Blue Island residents to continue to park on those streets without restriction. And that makes a lot of sense. I was really concerned about putting a restriction. For instance, the issue here is bad on Oak Street right now, but it's really only, the part of Oak Street about halfway from Western to Greenwood is parked up, and then the rest of it is open. And if we had a restriction where it was you had to have a permit, it would really be highly restricted to those people who don't have a problem right now. So
that's cumbersome.
Good, and it's cumbersome to administer, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a great idea. All right, good. So I'm all for that. And I do, I have at least 3 different issues that have been raised here about that. They all kind of center around the same thing. We have a business owner complaining that it's, making it more difficult for their customers to park because Western's all parked up. And that's another thing that I know we've talked with, I've talked with the city attorney about, and with Public Works, is that the signage on Western is old and a lot of it's missing now. And there are various ordinances that have parking restrictions in different kinds of parking restrictions in place on Western. There are a few small half 30-minute spots. There are some other 1 hour spots. And then I think all of Western is along that area is a 2 hour restriction. And we really need to have better, the signage put back up so that, that, if there's a 30-minute spot, then obviously that you're not gonna have long-term parking in those locations. So Public Works is actually ready to work on that. And I wanna see that happen as well. So that's been and when we approved we did make the final approval for Cook County Health to come in, and there was a lot of concern about parking at that time. And I will say that Tom and I both voted against the approval at that time, and not because we didn't want Cook County Health, we do, but because we felt that there hadn't been enough consideration given to a parking plan, and we knew there was going to be a problem, and there is, and we're working through it. And I knew we could work through it, and so it will. I feel it will work out. And I think Randy's most recent suggestion is extremely helpful. Let's see. We got a compliment for the city. I might as well read it. I'd like to acknowledge Public Works. Garbage and recycling pickup is great. Branches pickup after storms too. For the most part, residents are keeping their property clean and attractive. And that is largely true. Some of you may see my wife and I walking our dog around quite a bit. And so we take a tour of Blue Island every night. And, there's exceptions for sure. And I report a number of them. But I don't have to do it. I don't have to do a lot of it because most people do. And I think you need to remember that. In our job, we, Tom and Randy and I, we all hear a lot of complaints, and that's appropriate. We should, bring something to us. Sometimes it feels like, everything is all wrong. And it really, I know that it isn't. Blue Island's got its challenges. There's no question about it, but we're all here because it's a great place to live. I lived here 20 years myself. Tom's lived longer. Randy's a lifer. And we're all here because we really like living here. And there are reasons for that. And the town is not perfect and it needs help. And that's why we're all doing what we're doing and why you're all here watching us, and really appreciate all that involvement. And so I think that, and it's a hard time right now with COVID and the economy. And I mean, it's a rough time for everybody. And I understand why people get down on their mouth and get upset. It's only natural. I do. But I try to remind myself, and I just walk around the streets every so often. I'm just, I'm grateful to live here. It's a nice town and I really enjoy it. Let's see if we got anything else there, Randy, that you're seeing.
Yeah, I have two comments on the question and answer. And one of them is, what will happen with alleys?
You have an answer?
No one has an answer. The last thing I heard was that it was about $30 million estimate to redo just the streets in town. And that's with the streets at varying conditions. We are leave from what I understand that the Robinson Engineering has gone through and rated every street in town. So when we do hear of some funds available, we can look at it and say, hey, here's the next worst street. The problem is it costs between $250,000 and $400,000 to do one block of comprehensive street improvement, which includes redoing the sewers and the curbs, and basically checking all that stuff out and then laying a new street. That obviously is a lot of money, and any street that's getting done in town is because we get grants. Some of the areas in town have TIF districts, and so we have some money available through there to help pay for some of that. And all of that means that the alleys are going to probably just continue to get patched as they become aware of it and are able to have time to do it. Again, storms like last week's storm, stuff like that takes people off of road repairs. We know about the alleys, and we know that some of them are just horrible. And we try and get requests in, but I have a feeling that their list of requests is longer than the number of days they have that they can do it. And really, once it gets below a certain temperature, the asphalt plants close, and then they don't open again until it gets above the temperature for a significant amount of time. So so not a lot happens, you know, when it gets to be probably around mid-October to probably about March or April, generally, I would say. Is that correct, Randy? So yes, so if you have a big issue with your alleys, and I know sometimes there's, you know, a big truck can go down and cause a huge pothole that wasn't there that maybe Bill and I have missed and haven't reported. So do call us or email us and let us know, and we can put it on the list and try and get it done. I personally would like to see just the alleys. I've been suggesting since getting on city council, just come in with one of those things that chops up all the asphalt and makes it into gravel and just grade it. And then that way while it's gravel and maybe not quite as nice as having asphalt, but it's certainly better than what we have now. And if you have a pothole with gravel, you just throw some more gravel in it and it's better. So for me, that's a somewhat affordable and short-term answer. And in a lot of ways, the alleys are worse than the streets.
Tom's talking about a serious subject, and you may have seen me kind of smirking over here. Dave Nagel just asked a question that made me smile that I'm not going to repeat about my appearance. So I just want to explain
There's also one other question about what time does an outdoor party noise end? And I can field that question. There's really no limit to any. You shouldn't have noise that is disturbing to neighbors at any point in time. There's no time on our noise ordinance. Now our noise ordinance is quite old, but there's no time limit on it. And I would just be courteous. And if you have a problem, you can absolutely call the police. I believe some of them will, you know, arbitrarily look at like a 10 o'clock number weekday. That's just I mean, if you look at like when we can have construction stuff done around the city, but there's nothing official about when a party has to end, and what the noise level is. Basically, if it bothers you, you can report it.
I have a question for Tom here, I guess. Kind of what we've talked about, but a little different angle. Are there any required standards for businesses along Western? Fruit Market still has the Ghost of the Mayfair sign. This business has been gone for 15 years and only needs a coat of paint. What do you have to say, Tom?
That has been, yeah, we've given them numerous applications so that they can try and do that. With as many people who complain about the Mayfair sign, there's probably an equal number who like to have it just for the historical and coolness of the look of the sign. I do know it's missing on now, and there is that shadow, which is annoying. Again, we do try to enforce stuff. We try and enforce. They're trying to enforce the major things, and what they're trying to do when they enforce stuff is enforce it from 119th Street all the way down to 139th Street, and consistently, and evenly across the board, so that everyone who's not following the ordinances that are being enforced at that time would get the same ticket. So that's signage is a huge thing. I know they worked on some signage issues with percentage of windows coverage, and I know Howard was able to make some very good strides in fixing that, including Joe's Fruit Market. And they've done some things like with the dumpster enclosures. So I know with this COVID thing, it's making it harder because the businesses are struggling just to keep their doors open. So I don't know that there's been quite as much enforcement as there was earlier before the pandemic. The Mayfair thing has been kind of going on forever. I guess it's something we can address.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up pretty soon. Did want to just say to anybody who's watching on YouTube, if you'd let us know you watched, we have no way of knowing who watched, and it would just be kind of helpful to know. We make sure to invite you to any future events, so that would be great. I've got one more question here. It's a doozy, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's a political one. But the question is, will the city be able to narrow down the bills on the multiple attorneys anytime soon? And anyone who's watched city council knows that Tom and I do not care for the situation one little bit. And I'm not going to go into all the whys or wherefores of it. Probably a lot of you know it, and it's a long story. But I am going to, at the next city council, I'm going to put on the agenda I'm going to make a motion to terminate the two city attorneys that shouldn't be acting for the city right now. And so tune in at the city council meeting. That is Tuesday, September 8th. And watch the vote. See who votes how. It'll tell you a whole lot. And that's all I'll say about that. So if you want to say something, you're welcome to do so.
I can tell you how the vote's going to go now.
Well, I'm hoping for a couple surprises, frankly. I don't want to be cute about, because it's kind of a contentious political issue, and it probably sounds like a lot of hot air. And I don't care for this issue at all. It's a terrible distraction, but it is an important issue. And I know that there are people on city council who don't like it, and I would encourage them to vote their heart on this one. It's really it's not right what's going on. That's anybody else see any other questions? I think we kind of wrapped that up, right? Okay. Well, great. It seems like we had really good participation. Like I say, we don't know how many people were watching on YouTube, but we got a bunch of good questions that I heard from people all around the Fourth Ward and elsewhere. So I feel like it was a success. I hope you all got something out of it. And we certainly are, open to any comments, criticisms, suggestions for the future. So anybody else, Tom, Randy, anything you want to say before we're finished?
No.
All right.
Just thanks to everyone who came out and asked questions. Hopefully we were able to answer them. And I know they weren't the answers you wanted to hear, especially Felicia. She took off as soon as I said we weren't going to be able to do the alleys. But yeah, it's just it's for very, very difficult times, and we're doing the best we can all the way around.
For sure.
Regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on.
Exactly. Oh, and in that regard, I would just say, without any political statement at all, there is an incredibly once-in-a-lifetime consequential election coming up in November. All I'm going to say about it, vote. It's really important. Okay? All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.